A very good morning to all. On behalf of KRPI, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Mr. Najahat Ali and thank you for taking time out for this talk. In today's talk, Best Practices in Urban and Rural Development, Mr. Najahat Ali touches upon AKTC interventions in London, Pakistan, along with their major work in Lahore. He holds a BA degree from Pakistan, an MA degree from the UK, and an additional master's degree in cultural economics from Italy. Currently, Mr. Wajahat Ali serves as the Director of Conservation and Design at the Aga Khan Cultural Service, Pakistan. In the 22-year association with AKCSK, his primary focus has been on the planning of conservation of heritage buildings in the northern region of Pakistan as well as in Lahore. Mr. Wajahat Ali has had the privilege of contributing to several prominent projects, including the conservation of 400-year-old Shigar Fort, Khaplu Palace, the 900-year-old Altit Fort, the Mughal-era Shahi Hammam, and the Wazir Khan Mosque in Lahore. Currently, he is leading the conservation efforts at the World Heritage Site of Lahore Fort, which involves the restoration of the world's largest mural picture wall, as well as the preservation of the Sheesh Mahal, Summer Palace, and the establishment of a visitors and interpretation center as central components. In addition to his role at AKCSP, he is also associated with the World Heritage Institute of Training and Research as an observer for Pakistan. Furthermore, he holds memberships in several professional organizations, including ICOMOS Pakistan, the Pakistan Council of Architects and Town Planners, and the Institute of Architects Pakistan. We will now start the talk.
Hi, am I audible to the audience, please? Am I audible, please?
Yes, we can hear you. You can go ahead. If you could turn on your camera, then it would be nice if we can see you. Yeah, that will be it.
Yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
So, my name, thank you for a brief introduction. My name is Wajahat Ali and I'm a conservation architect and I work at Aga Khan Cultural Service Pakistan as a director of conservation and design, and you mentioned that I'm associated with this organization for last 22 years, long time I guess. And today I try to present how the work of Aga Khan Cultural Service Pakistan has impacted the rural and urban societies where they use culture as a development tool. So majority of presentation will be presented by myself, but I have a colleague, Ms. Zaina Nasir. She will be, giving you details how science is important for restoration of buildings and how science has impacted, at least Pakistani society and how the impacts are going deep into the society. So my colleague Zaina is also online now, and once her part is there, I'll request her to present. So now, coming back to the presentation, since I represent Aga Khan Trust for Culture, the objective of Aga Khan Trust for Culture is, let me read that. I'll read this. Undertaking the sustainable restoration and rehabilitation of historical structures and public spaces in a way that spur economic and cultural development. So for Aga Khan Trust for Culture, it's not just mere building restoration. It is linked with creating jobs, creating positive impact to society. And I'll through my presentation, I'll try to explain through examples that how that was done. So what is Aga Khan Development Network? Aga Khan Trust for Culture or Aga Khan Culture Service Pakistan is part of Aga Khan Development Network. This is one of the largest development. Uh, uh,
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Could you just wait for a second, please? Sorry, apologies for this.
टीव्हीच बंद झाली टीव्ही
हाँ तो हाँ गेला
झालं चालू झालं मग सनाया सांगेल ना
recording this.
या स्ट्रीम करतोय हा इकडे
Hello?
स्ट्रीम करतोय इकडे स्ट्रीमिंग चालू आहे
I can hear you in the...
shall I?
He's asking something.
Sanaya, can he begin again?
Yeah. Should I proceed with my presentation?
Just hold on a minute, sir. The screen has gone off in the other room.
Hello. Can you hear us? Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello. So can you hear us?
Yeah.
We can hear you. You can hear us. Yes.
Should I proceed with my presentation?
Hello. Can you hear us?
Hello. So can you hear us?
Yes. Should I proceed with my presentation?
अपने स्पीकर में नहीं आ रही है
हाँ स्पीकर चेक कर डिवाइस सेटिंग चेक कर
आप ही बोलो मैडम कैन यू हियर अस हेलो सर
जी आ रही है आवाज आ रही है
स्पीकरला तर यायला पाहिजे विद्युत यायला पाहिजे इकडे नाही येत
सेव करो नीचे जाके सेव करना पड़ता है स्क्रॉल डाउन डिवाइस सेटिंग में सेव नहीं आ रहा है नीचे
इधर से तो आना चाहिए
क्या आवाज नहीं आ रही है
फोन पढ़ना है उछला के
हमारे स्पीकर सिस्टम में कोई प्रॉब्लम
नहीं ये स्पीकर अलग है माइक्रोफोन बराबर सिलेक्ट किया है ना तुम लोगों ने विच माइक्रोफोन शांत
लॅपटॉप
त्याचं बोलणं इथे ऐकू नाही येत आहे
ओके मला ऐकू येतंय हेडफोन
मी तो
हा तर त्याला सांग
Hello.
Please.
Yeah, sir. The issue is that like we can hear you, but the students who are sitting in the staff room, in the classroom, they can't hear you. There's some problem with the speaker over there. So we're just sorting that out. If you could just give us a few minutes. I'm very sorry about this. Hello.
Either side I think.
Sir, are you able to hear us?
Hello, sir. Yeah.
और
Can
से
you
बात
hear us?
कर
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. So you're on mute.
Sir, could you just
Yes, I
unmute
can hear
yourself?
you. Yes.
Yeah.
I can hear you. Yes.
Yes, yes. We are just checking whether the audio issue has been resolved or not.
Your name.
If you could just say something so we can check whether you are audible.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, okay.
I
So
can
just
see everyone. I can hear you.
okay. Thank you.
We can begin, sir. Yeah. Sorry for that.
Halaga?
Right.
Okay, okay. So we can proceed.
Shall I proceed with my presentation?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. You can go ahead, please. Thank you so much.
Is my screen visible to everyone, because my presentation is mostly visuals and my talk is fully supported by visuals. So I want everyone to see the visuals as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The screen is visible.
Okay. So as a part of, as I was mentioning that Aga Khan Cultural Service Pakistan is part of larger Aga Khan Development Network, where they have a separate sector where they have used probably the only body out there in the world where culture has been used as a development tool. Mostly we have seen out there in the world that economic development is there, of course, by building roads, factories. Social development, you address poverty through social development of social infrastructure, but we rarely see anything that is related to culture. So the Aga Khan Development Network has used culture as a tool to address poverty, to enhance life, and we are part of that. And since our motto or goal is mostly physical intervention, so we are part of. You will see in the right chart. You will see Aga Khan Historical Cities Program. So here I represent our Aga Khan Historical Cities Program, where through building restoration, rehabilitation of settlements or old cities, we try to evoke life in still build a life into those structures, to bring them back to life and improve the lives of the people who live around that. I think when we see this chart is a perfect example that heritage conservation or a building heritage or heritage conservation can create a lot of impact. It can have a social or cultural impact, because once you restore a building, the pride of the society who owns, who believe that heritage is theirs, their pride enhances. Again, it is also linked with environmental responsibility or environmental impact, I would say. Historical buildings tend to utilize indigenous material. Like in case of Lahore, here what we use is all local material. There is no imported material. Of course, you address the important issue, the global issue of environmental protection, by utilizing local material, local techniques. Similarly, heritage conservation is also linked with economical impact or economical responsibilities there. How you do that? Once you work on the project or a historical building, you create a lot of job during the work, and once that work is completed, a lot of tourism comes to that area. A lot of economic opportunities become available to the local residents. So heritage conservation can spur the real life, not into the building itself, the subject matter, but in the society in general it can address. So this is the map of Pakistan. I'm sure everyone knows about that. So these are the areas. The red dot is Lahore. This is our urban context, and the areas up in the north, we call Gilgit-Baltistan, is where our contrast for culture has intervened in last 3 decades. So I'll begin my presentation with this green, shaded areas where. This is the rural context I would call. The area is very hard to live, particularly in winters. But it gives you the unique opportunity, because of the isolation, because of it was cut off from the rest of the world because of the terrain, I would say, difficulty to communicate, difficulty to travel. The heritage was intact some 3 decades back, and the area available for agriculture is barely 2%. So it was a good opportunity for Aga Khan Culture Service Pakistan to go and do the rightly, in the right time, the heritage conservation. So they began working on these important monuments. I would start. Uh, the intervention was started in 1990s, when Aga Khan Trust for Culture started working on the Baltic Fort. This was almost a structure from 14th century, almost 700 years. It was in a bad shape. Through a restoration effort of 6 years, it was restored. And not only the monument was restored, but the context around that, the settlements around that. Again, I would call our intervention up in the northern Pakistan is not monument centric. It is community driven, conservation. Local community organizations were formed that acted as a civil society or a pressure group to address their issues on priority. Our contrast for culture engaged them from the day first. Engage them from the day first, and the end result is a structure like this, and the context, and this one structure can generate enough for the whole area. We call it as an economic engine. It was a dead structure before 1996. Now this has turned into something that the whole, the majority of the town depends on. The tourist who comes to visit this place, of course, they stay in the hotels, they buy from the local grocery shops or handicraft shops. They use their, transport service. So the whole economy, of that area runs on this particular project. Similarly, this is another project, Shigar Fort. I was part of the team. I was a part of the conservation team. It was an effort of 4 years, and this was in a shamble, I would say. When I was there in 2000, the only thing visible was the dust. It was a dusty structure, a collapsed structure. Now this has the Baltic Fort. The previous project was transformed into a museum, but this was a palace, so this was partially transformed into a museum. But majority of spaces have been dedicated as a residential room. You go, you pay, you stay. So a lot of money comes from this. A lot of additional jobs were created through these projects. So these are some visuals. The picture on right is a museum part. The audience hall where the local ruler used to meet the people of his royalty. We have transformed that room into a audience hall or exhibition hall, and the other rooms, which were their residential rooms, have been converted into a, I would say, world-class residential boutique hotel, very famous not only in Pakistan but globally. If you see this particular one picture, it tells you the society, the story in a summary from that. The building at the top was the ice found condition, and it was abandoned for 50 years. Abandoned for 50 years. Now, because of this intervention, the whole area has become a spotlight. You name any person, you name any person who visit that area, stays there, and brings a lot of good for the people and the society or the villages around. They benefit a lot from this project, either through direct jobs or indirect jobs. Maybe jobs created in if not thousands, then in hundreds by this project. And these are small villages. The total population of the whole Gilgit-Baltistan is 2 million. Imagine 2 million. Maybe a neighborhood in Mumbai has more population than this whole area, but this one project has created jobs in hundreds. So it's a big number. It's a big number given the context we have. This is another fort. This is the oldest surviving structure in not only in Pakistan but in Western Himalaya. This includes parts of India, Nepal, China, Pakistan. So this is almost more than 1,000-year-old. This structure was restored in 2007. And again, the formation, the morphology or the architectural configuration suggested to convert this into only a museum. So this particular fort, like Baltir Fort, has been converted into a museum. Just look at the context, the high mountains and the placement of fort perching at the top of the settlement. The settlement below the fort is again very historical. So again, the aim of Aga Khan Transport Culture was not to focus only on monument, but the process was community driven. Before starting the fort itself, the community context, the historical core was rehabilitated by provision of sanitation, water supply, underground electrification, improvement of their community areas, community historical buildings. And again, the best part of this whole process, as I mentioned earlier, that community has been engaged from the day first, and they also contribute in terms of in-kind labor services, or in terms of they have a share in. It's not just only a donors comes pay you money for restoration. No, not like that. They become part of it by provision of shares, in-kind share or sharing in terms of grants. So this was another project. This is another one. This is not far from the I would call it from Indian side. This is towards the northeastern part of Gilgit-Baltistan, near Ladakh. This is Apollo Palace, more than 200, around 200 years. It was again abandoned structure. This has been converted into a residential boutique residential facility, as well as a museum for a day visitors. People come, they stay, and these are some of the lounges. I remember these were abandoned structure. The whole roof was collapsed. It was collapsed, so we had that lot of effort to not dismantling the whole structure, carefully consolidated whatever remains were there, and added the missing part, and the result is quite satisfying. And these are the boutique hotels, and interestingly, community has a full role in the running these operations. Of course, operations is done by a professional body, but the people who are employed in these projects are 100% local people from the local community. They get direct employment, indirect Other than this, they also get, overall share of 30% from the earning. So it's mostly community, going back to the community, going back to the community. Because of this, people realize and community realize and they own it. This is the ultimate goal of Afghan transport culture, to empower people through heritage conservation and to give them back, not just mere talk or just to restore a physical brick, mud and mortar. No, just give them back in shape of jobs, in shape of money, in shapes of other opportunities, trainings. So these four projects in that part has created that mass. Other than this, our current transport culture has also restored historical monuments, like these are the mosques. This is one of the oldest mosques in the area. And other than these historical settlements or historical neighborhoods which were abandoned, people migrated from these historical cores to the other areas because of Aga Khan transport culture effort. Now they are coming back to in these monuments, and these are some of the visuals. I remember this was a no-go area for some time because this was all haunted space. No one used to live, but because of intervention, now people are coming back. They prefer to live in these historical codes because the facilities have been provided in terms of water supply, electricity, sanitation, and people love to come back. And now this is full of life, and this is what our Hunters for Culture aim is to give energy or give life to on that basis and create kind of opportunities, economic opportunities. So before I close the rural context, I think I would say that these projects have created a great impact in terms of pluralism. Why I say this pluralism, because these structures had a Buddhist influence. In certain structures, we have a Sikh influence. We have a influences from other religions. So people, while giving, restoring those structures, they tend to respect. Oh, our past had Buddhist influence. So this connection, has developed because of these projects. Given the radicalization in every society. I'm not just only talking about Pakistan. It's everywhere, in India, in everywhere. These projects act as a soft kind of a binding element. You see that your forefathers had a Sikh, influence or a Buddhist influence. Now they tend to respect that. So this is one of the major impacts. Again, financial viability, as I mentioned, that a lot of money goes back to the community. Even 30% of the net profit goes back to the community. These projects have won international recognition, UNESCO awards, for instance. So now what's happening because of these recognition? A lot of it pulls tourists. If there is a World Heritage Site, people tend to visit that. And if a project has won UNESCO Heritage Award, people tend to visit that. This has increased the number of tourists to the area. Of course, when tourists are increased, tourism is increased. But, pouring of money is also increased to the community. Of course, it has increased the tourism demand. And pride and identity, I would say, pride and identity, that is something which is free of cost if you think thoroughly. These projects has enhanced that. People take a lot of pride in their heritage. They don't dismantle any more heritage. They tend to. It's giving them kind of an example. And this Shigar Khapudu Baltit has created that mass, that example that a heritage can be saved and it can be used for transforming the lives. So these are just some of the summary of the impacts. And as you see, a lot of tourism, a lot of international tourism has increased. And these are just numbers, in the northern areas of Gilgit-Baltistan, one music school has been established, 3 social enterprises were created, 4 major landmarks were conserved, 12 UNESCO awards have been received. So this is just a summary of our intervention. And given the scale of the project, or given the scale of the area and population, this is a huge contribution. Now coming back to Lahore, this is a general map of Lahore, and the dot you see is the brown dot is the wall city where we work. and this is a Greater Lahore. And if you compare Lahore some 400 years ago and now, the dot is from 17th century, 14th, 15th century. Now the city has been expanded exponentially towards south, and there is no control. So now let's come back to the actual project. So we work in Lahore since 2007, and our area of intervention in Lahore is the walled city of Lahore. The walled city of Lahore. It is, historical facts. This area has been inhabited for last 1,000 years, but proper fortification was done during Emperor Akbar time. It was a fortified wall structure or a city with control gates. 13 gates were there, and the area is 2.5 square kilometer, and the population is about 200,000 people. It is highly dense area. The building stock of this area is 20,000. We have documented each building, and 10% is the historical. This is the remains of historical buildings is hardly 10%, and we are trying to control the damage because of the urban commercialization of this area. Historical buildings are on a continuous part of dismantling, and people tend to build new structure as a replacement. So we are trying to convince through authority not to dismantle, preserve, and use that as a source of economic engine. So the upper part is the whole wall city, and the lower part you see on the lower left is the famous Mughal monument by Lahore Fort, where we are also working in the wall city and in Lahore Fort. And on your right is the famous Badshahi Mosque, like the one in India, in Delhi, similar to that. Lahore Fort is bigger than Red Fort in India, in Delhi, and the mosque is also bigger than the one in Delhi. In the center is Samadhi, is a Sikh structure, and on below center is also a Samadhi of Ranjit Singh, and one of the Sikh gurus has been cremated there. So this core this whole assemblage has it's a value of international level. It has a potential to be included in this whole area, included in World Heritage Site. But currently, the only Lahore Fort is inscribed in Lahore in the World Heritage Site. So these are just some visuals showing how the historical landmark has an impact on the urban context. So we are here since 2007. We developed strategic plan for wall city. We have also done demonstrative project in the wall city of Lahore, and we have done two major monuments. One is Mughal era historical public bathhouse, probably the only public bathhouse in subcontinent, and the mosque, the Wazir Khan Mosque from Shah. These structures are mostly from Emperor Shah Jahan's time, 1620s, 30s. So this was since we are historical cities program, so we have an affiliation or affinity with historical centers, contrast for culture. This was some of the visuals showing how local residents used to live. These are some of the projects we have carried out, and these are pre-conservation. And you can see great difference between these pictures, how it looked like before our intervention, and this is how these buildings have been transformed. And because of these, the tourist flocking, is on the weekends is full of tourists, giving injection to the local, economy. Just you can see the difference if I show you these pictures. Just concentrate on these pictures because I think these pictures are self-explanatory. So you can relate with this one. And a lot of tourists particularly international tourists visit these structures. And because of this demonstrative project, it has given sense to the rest of the neighborhoods to kind of approach the government of Pakistan or our countries for culture, for replication of the similar model. This is the whole one of the major bazaars in one of the neighborhoods we have done. On the top left is how it used to be. All right, what we have done, and you can see the change. How the whole area has been transformed as a urban rehabilitation project. This is one of my favorite projects. I was part of the team, and this is 17th century hammam. It was a kind of it was not used as a hammam. It was a school. It was a police center. It was a vocational training. 2014, 13, we came to know about this. We approached government of Punjab, and they handed out that structure to us. And this on the left, this was structure. It was encroached through with more than 50 shops. And now on the right, you can see how it was freed. It was freed from these encroachments, and now this is one of the best, I think, conservation projects, if not in South Asia, maybe in Pakistan. The one I think it's a pure building conservation projects and reclamation of original bathing features were exposed in this effort. These are, this particular picture on the left is hot water bath area. It was all covered with marble. It was an investigation that helped us to go back to the original levels, and we have tried to expose. And the paintings, whatever you see on the walls, are original, and we have tried not to recreate complete, to give our share of the originals. And it is a favorite tourist spot in Pakistani context or in a Lahore context. This is a mosque next in that same neighborhood, Wazir Khan Mosque, one of the most decorated Mughal monuments with frescoes and tile work. It is almost completed by us. This on the left, you see, this was also encroached through shops, and now it has been freed from these, covering, eyesores, and now it's freed, and the monumental look is back, and it's not just the look, the use of the space is back. This was you imagine, a mosque from 17th century has been used like this, the outer area. Now it is used for cultural activities, religious activities, and this is how it looked like. This is an effort of 4 years. So these are some visuals. Just look at the context of. I like this project. I mean, personally, this is the most favorite project in the whole city for me. Just look how it used to be. The neighborhood of Wazir Khan Mosque. Just look how the transport. This is magical. I call it a miracle. Our counterpart in government of Punjab call it a miracle, and I think this is a miracle. From here to here is a great change. And these are some visuals. And look at the use. It was a parking yard before our intervention, and it was like steel walls. I mean, not compatible with the mosque or maybe with a historical monument of that stature. Now life is back. And as I mentioned earlier, 20,000 structures in 2.5 square kilometers, very dense area, hardly any space for breathe. Now locals come to this area to celebrate, to breathe. This is a breathing. It's a lung for the whole city of Lahore. This is the only open area which was occupied because of our intervention. Life is back. And now coming back to the World Heritage Site of Lahore, interesting site. It has a unique site. It has a Hindu temple from Loh. I mean, the Lahore itself, the name was given from this temple, Loh Temple. We have a structure that contains religious painting, Christian religious painting. We have a Sikh. Number 4 is a Sikh temple, we have of course mosque. So I mean the only site in Pakistan which represent for religious expressions, very rare site in Pakistan, even in India, where harmony or coexistence is becoming radicalized and not acceptable. So these projects can create that softer side and to address these issues, and we are trying to restore these monuments and to reduce that gap that has been created in last 30-40 years. So this Lahore Fort has this great dimension that it has. So this is the context. The center, the next to Lahore Fort is the mosque. The Emperor Alamgir that built for their mosque in around 1670s, one of the biggest mosques out there in the world. On the left is Sikh Samadhi. In the center is the Huzuri Bagh built by the great local Emperor Ranjit Singh, the great Sikh Emperor Ranjit Singh. These are some of the features from the World Heritage Site of Lahore. It has a network of waterworks, fountains, cascades. It has on the lower left is Petrodora work, the inlay work. I mean, it was borrowed by Mughals from Italy. I mean, I would say from Florence. Of course, it's very similar to Taj Mahal. It has, these famous, I mean, a lot of fresco work, a lot of gilt work. One of the paintings showing Hindu deities in the Sheesh Mahal, and on the right is the Sheesh Mahal, the glass work. So a lot of unique decorative features have been used in different spaces of Lahore Fort. These are, we have divided the fort into different quadrangles as per the configuration and as per the, various, for various reasons. These are just, and we are working here, on, as one of our major projects. Our first project in Lahore Fort was the conservation of picture wall. I mean, probably you are not aware of this. This is the world's, I think, the largest mural, 100,000 square feet of surface area from 17th century, with a lot of tile work, fresco, marble, petrodora, cut and dress brickwork. So I would, I think, I would request, since my colleague is also online, Zaina Nasir, she would explain how the process of science was fully utilized. That I think is for the first time in Pakistan, because Pakistan, when we talk about conservation in Pakistan, it means you have to create everything new, reconstruct. But that concept has been corrected through this project, where preservation was given more focus than rather than reconstruction. Zaina, can you please share your? Are you sharing your screen?
No, I'll be using your screen.
Okay, you can explain. I'll then change the slides.
Okay. So thank you, Wajad Saab, for a very good summary of what AKTC has been doing in Pakistan. As Wajad Saab said, so the picture wall is the world's largest mural. And when I say that, I mean that it's the largest decorated wall that exists anywhere in the world. So it's around 1,600 feet long, and on average it's 60 feet tall. So what you see on this slide, for example, is that above, let's say 45 to 50 feet, you have these structures on top of the wall, right? And these are all the main buildings in the fort that were mostly were used by the royalty. So the shorter side, I don't know if you can see my cursor. The shorter side is the western facade, which is where the main entrance is today.
This is the western facade.
Sorry?
Let me this is the western facade.
Yes.
You carry on, Zara. You carry on, Zara.
Sorry, have you changed the slide?
No.
Okay, and the northern side, which is the longer side, actually flew. You had the river Ravi flowing next to it, right? So you can imagine that this was a moat area initially, and it's where, for example, elephant-animal fights would happen. And this was completely an area that was in private use, right? So the public entrance was not from here as it is today from the western side. You had the river flowing on the north side, and this was not meant for private use, and the reason this is important is because this is a wall that's fully decorated from head to toe with tile work, mostly kashikari, glazed tile work, and fresco wall paintings. These are the two main modes of decorations, and it's important because such richly, intricately decorated areas are normally in the interior, which are in use by the emperors and their families, right? To have this once like one of a kind decorated wall in the entire Mughal Empire and all the empires in the world, and to have it not for private use is a very interesting case, and you don't see this in other forts, even in India. You can move to the next slide.
Zena, I have changed the slides.
Oh, okay. I can't. It's still the same one on my. Okay, there we go. So, so in terms of the picture wall, and this is relevant overall to the fort, that the main source of deterioration and damage that it's gone through is because of the dismantling of the drainage system that mostly happened during the British rule. So the British were living in the fort after they annexed from Ranjit Singh's sons who were fighting succession wars. So the Sikh Empire had really, really weakened after Ranjit Singh's death. Till before that, the British had annexed, as you all probably know, Delhi, most of the areas of the subcontinent and even Punjab, but they were not able to annex the Punjab area that was ruled by the Sikhs, and it's because of the success of Ranjit Singh's military campaigns that was the case. But after his death, things weren't going that well for the empire, and the British finally took over and built their residence in the fort. And when they did that, they dismantled a lot of the drainage systems in the process of making some new buildings, dismantling others to make pathways for ramps and roads to get in their vehicles. They made tennis lawn courts, and so a lot of the drainage that they rerouted. So the original Mughal drainage was very, very sophisticated, right? And you had water going circulated throughout the buildings, circulating in the fort and then exiting the fort, like you see in all the forts in India also. So dismantling it meant that the water was no longer exiting the fort the way it should have. They made a lot of terracotta spouts sticking out of the picture wall. So for example, here, when you see so here you see on top of the wall, there are some panels on the upper level that are completely ruined. And the reason for that is that you have water spouts sticking right on top of the panels. So you can imagine that. So basically, in a short summary, what the British did was that all the water inside the fort was getting accumulated and leaving out on the picture wall, right? So literally throwing all the water that's accumulated in the fort during the monsoon rains onto the wall. So imagine 200 years of that, constant water soakage, especially during the monsoons where you have heavy, heavy rainfalls, just like you do in Delhi. And, so constant moisture, and on top of that, you have 200 years of complete neglect, not only from the British, but then later on, this was handed on to the ASI, then the ASI was split after partition. Now you have the Punjab Archaeology Department, and now it's under the Walled City Lahore Authority, the heritage site. But as Wajahat Sahab was saying, conservation has never been done in the true sense of the term. It's always meant reconstruction, and it's never meant really looking into the core issues of why things are going bad, why deterioration is taking place, and that's where the role of science also comes in. So below you can see some images close up of what kind of decorations the wall really has. So as I was saying, it's full of tile mosaic work and fresco wall painting. So in the arches of the spandrels of the arches, you have tile work. And tile work like no other, right? So you've obviously, as people living in India, you've seen tile work in Mughal monuments. This was a very, very famous mode of decoration, not just for Mughals, but all Islamic emperors across the empires in the world. But they always use floral motifs and geometric designs, right? But you never have figurative panels. So here, what's really iconic about this wall is that it's full of figurative imagery, where you have animals that were important in the Mughal court represented. You have portraits of men, ordinary men, not men royalty, like candlelight bearers, sword fighters, men carrying baskets of fruit, other objects, people traveling with their animals and caravans. So there's that category of figurative imagery. Then you have mythological creatures, mostly from Persian mythology, also local mythologies of the subcontinent. So, like Persian angels, demons, mythological animals. You have depictions of European style angels. So also a lot of cross-cultural influence, right? You see European influence, you have Chinese influence. So it's really amazing to have this very largest decorated wall in the world, full of images, from the Mughal court, like probably live scenes that craftsmen had seen in the Mughal court of two people fencing, practicing, elephants chasing horsemen as practice for battle. So all kinds of, it's like an album from the Mughal life depicted in a wall made out of tile mosaic work. So it's really, that's really a special thing about this wall. But when we started this project, we really had no past precedence on how to proceed. And the reason for that is not that we don't have this kind of material or decorative work anywhere else. We do. In terms of the kind of tile work these are Persian tiles, that were developed in Irkashan, Iran, in around the 11th century. And it was brought into the subcontinent by the Mughals through Central Asia. So you see this kind of tile work in Central Asia, countries like Uzbekistan. You see it in Iran, you see it in India and all the Mughal monuments. And you also see it in Pakistan, of course. So, it's not that this kind of material hasn't been used. It has. And, the kind of climate we have here, also similar to the climate in India, for example. But we had no standards of procedures of how to preserve this kind of tile work in this kind of climate, in the exterior, right? Because it's not an interior facade. So that really changes your entire approach for conservation. Because anywhere where this kind of work has happened, Iran is mostly, they reconstruct everything. Also in Uzbekistan, and also work that's been done in India is mostly focused on reconstruction. So what really was new for us was how to preserve the style work. And when I say that, I mean not dismantle it, not remove it, really just stabilize what's left of it, freeze its existing condition, and really treat it for what's left of it. And only then, once we're done doing that, which is 80% of the work, I would say, the last 10-20% we think of how to present it. Should we add color anywhere? Do we need to reconstruct? All of that. So 80% of the work is that, right? It goes behind the surface and it goes in stabilizing and consolidating it. So what we did first thing was involve international consultants, which meant getting an input and perspective into how things are being done internationally, especially in Europe. So conservation is not a very, very developed field in Pakistan. I think it's actually a bit more developed in India than it is in Pakistan. But still, like in India, you still have some diploma programs. You have conservation being taught in many institutes now. But in Pakistan, it's completely new. It's not taught in any institute. You don't have short diploma courses that you can do in conservation. And traditionally, it's been a forte of architects and engineers. And again, that shows that that's because conservation has always been about making things new. Getting together people who specialize in preservation of decorated surfaces. So it's a completely new thing introduced through this project. So we got on board an international consultant whose name is Werner Schmidt. He is a conservator in Italy, and his specialty is preservation of decorated architectural surfaces, which means that any decoration on the wall, painting, style work, mirror work, any type of decoration, any type of craft work, he, for example, specializes in preserving them. So he was involved in the project since the very beginning. Him and his student would come on site, and it was like an on-the-job training for us. So, for example, I joined in 2017. Me and 4 of my other colleagues learned it. So this project has been not only been giving employment to people, it's been a sort of an institute, right? A conservation institute in itself, where everyone who's joined the project has received on-the-job training. And I would say first 3 years of my working on this project was all about learning how to do it on site with my hands, right? And I personally think that was way better than going to for any institute abroad, for example, to learn conservation, to do my master's in conservation. Not that that's not valuable, of course it is, but the kind of knowledge and insight, practical insight I gained into the work, and because of the nature of the work is such that it's all about practicality, right? All about doing hands-on work. Could never have learned the same from a textbook. So, as Wajahat Sahab has been talking about how these projects have very community-oriented approach, and they're all about empowering the community by putting back all the revenue generated. This is the flip side of it is also that is project like the Picture Wall has really been a platform, an institute for people to come together on site and learn the work on site, understand the language of a historic site, how to interact with it, how to approach it. Right. So this is a picture, for example, of the western section of the western facade that we conserved, and people are very shocked to see it completed because they think that we still have work to do on it because they're like, oh, this still looks old. But that's exactly the point, right? That's a compliment for us because we want it to look 400 years old. It's almost 400 years old, and it should not look anything like it was made 50 years or even 10 years ago. Because the entire value in it is in the fact that it's historic, right? And again, as a scientist involved in the project, I get this question a lot that people are surprised to hear that anyone who studied chemistry, for example, has anything to do with this project. And then again, goes to show how people expect only artists and artisans to be working on it because they think new things are being made, right? New paintings. They think people will be sitting here with paintbrushes, repainting whatever's lost. But here they see a lot of people sitting with injections, acting like doctors for the wall. And that's what real conservation work is all about. This is a section on the northern side that we have just completed. This wall was made by two emperors, right? You had Emperor Jahangir starting it in around 1624. And the section of this picture where this picture ends, this last tower on the right, is where Jahangir's section ends. And then Shah Jahan continues the wall, following the theme exactly as Jahangir had laid out. So while we've proceeded with this project, there's a lot. So here's the section completed. The section that you saw in the previous picture is a section completed right now. And again, you see, so for example, here you see a lot of missing panels, right, that we've just plastered. And the reason we do that is because where we don't have evidence for the lost tile work, completely no evidence, we end up plastering it. Now, this is again something that gives a slight discomfort to, for example, our partners, our government partners, or the public who comes because they're not used to seeing this. The general approach of the government to do conservation here is to make it look very, very sparkling new because it's easy. You can do your work quickly because you're just dismantling things and making things new, making a lot of guesses about what's lost, even if you don't have evidence. That means you don't have to do a lot of research. You don't have to go into history. You don't have to carry out any scientific analysis. You don't need to figure out why things are deteriorating because you're just going to remove it and make it new. And there's not a lot of intellectual or conservation debates going on there, right? Work is done quickly, money is made more because there's more that you can measure on the surface area, work that you've done, easy to justify. Everyone is happy, public thinks you've done so much work. But that's not how conservation is done. So it's very, one of the challenges we face is in trying to justify our work to a government partner who is not used to working like this, So this project, again, has not only been generating employment for so many craftsmen, for example, it's created the first generation of conservators in Pakistan who specialize in this field called, preservation of decorated surfaces. And it's also been a tool to try to change the mindset of the public by setting this huge example, of what a conserved facade should look like. It shouldn't look like something that was just made a few months ago. And obviously once it's done being conserved and presented, it's Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
So obviously not back to its original function as it was during the Mughal times, but because this is a space on the northern side of the wall, you have open grassy space there where you can have events. So this is a recent event that happened after we removed the scaffolding from this section. It was a sort of a festival / bazaar that took place here, and it's a great way to introduce people to the area, sort of allow them to have some sort of interaction with it, because we have such a vast groups of population. You have this young generation who's completely cut off with their history and don't interact with the historic sites anymore, and then you have this sector of population that have this nostalgic idea of historic monuments, don't engage with them anymore, but have this nostalgic approach that once we were this and we were that. And then you have this lot who's has that nostalgic approach, but is also trying to make an effort and connect with them, through research, through visits, or through various different mediums. So you have to kind of engage all different groups in different ways, and this is a good way to engage your young generation who has no familiarity with Mughal historic sites, for example, would never end up coming to the fore in any other circumstances but a festival like this. I think the project overall is a success because we have really done a lot of pioneering things, for example, by doing scientific analysis of the tile work, for example. So, figuring out the exact composition, involving conservation scientists in Germany, for example, who was able to analyze for us why the deterioration is taking place. And then, the first 2-3 years of the project were all about this, figuring out the materials, understanding why they're deteriorating, and then coming up with treatments. So I always love making this analogy that there's really no difference than what you would be doing if you were a doctor for a patient, right? You have to take the patient's history, just like that. You have to study the monument's history, understand what interventions it went through, understand the composition, then understand why the deterioration is happening. And then even when you come up with a treatment, I always say that it's the only science where you cannot rely on formulas. Lab results will not give you 100% directions on what to do on site. It only lays the groundwork. And, something works in the lab, it's just a good starting platform for you. On the side, things will be so drastically different. You have to do so many experimentations, so many hidden trials. We've tried so many different materials for consolidation, for example, so many different ways of applying them, even after we've selected the material. So many factors that you have to look into, economic factors, whether you can ship something that you think is actually working for you, a material, for example. So there's so much that goes into it. And at the end of the day, it's all about improvisation, making your judgments on your feet, on the site. You have to be impulsive in so many aspects, and that's why I think conservation is a field where nothing but experience matters. The more experience you have, the more comfortably you'll be able to make judgments about things that are unforeseen. And conservation, like on a site like this, is all about unforeseen challenges, right? 7 years we've been working on it. I would say first 2-3 years we were in the process of developing things from the scratch, right? But still, every section we work on, every panel we work on, conditions are different. So many times we have to modify our procedures that we, say are 70-80% quite straightforwardly set up by now. But that's the fun part of it, And the even more fun fact is that there is no record of this wall. Not in historical documents. You guys might know that Mughals are known for having their administrative and daily affairs recorded by court historians. For example, each emperor had their own. None of them mention the picture wall, even though the construction of so many monuments is mentioned. The Sikhs don't mention it. European travelers who come see the fort mention so many decorations, so many things that they see. They don't mention the wall. Finally, you have this French superintendent installed by the British as the superintendent of the archaeology, ASI. And he is the first person in around 1903 that ends up writing about this wall. He is extremely fascinated by it, and he's the first one to just, call it out for what it is, say very clearly about the descriptions that you have on the wall, the things that are depicted, different themes. He makes a line drawing of the entire wall, which is very, very useful for us today when we're doing our work. He made hand tracings of some important panels that he considered important figurative panels. And that's literally the only record we have of this wall. So all in all, it's a very, very special project. It's different from the projects in the north in that the projects in the north really focused on structural stabilization and restoration of a lot of architectural facets that were lost. This is a purely preservation-based project. It's the first one in Pakistan, and we can safely say that no other conservation project in the country has approached conservation in a way where science is so heavily involved and the really main focus is on preservation. We have so many interns who come and learn conservation on site. I would say in the past 7 years, at least 30 to 40 people freshly graduated from universities have come, interned, some have stayed, some have left, and learned this conservation work, that is really being taught in no institute in the country, no project in the country, learned conservation work on site, and moved on to whatever suits them. But some of them have stayed, for example, like me, some of my other colleagues who've decided to make this into a career, right? So really big changes that this project is resulting in terms of changing people's mindset, setting a new pathway for conservation, generating employment, and of course the future is going to be more. So once we're done working on this project, for example, as this slide is showing, it's going to be used as a venue, and it's going to, I think the real hype about it will start once we're completely done conserving it. So another year or two to go with our last section that we've just started, around 3,000 square meter. It's the last section of the wall that we have just started a few months ago. And as sad I feel about it, saying that it's the last section, because 7 years is a long time to work on one project, but it's still exciting to think about it ending and then seeing the space being utilized and coming back to life. So yeah, I can keep going on and on about this project because there's so much involved in it, but I'm going to stop here. If you guys have any questions, you can ask me or Vajat Saab.
Thank you. Zaina, I have 2 more slides, then we can ask for open the floor for the questions. I think,
Okay.
Thank you, Zaina. Thank you for this comprehensive, in-depth analysis and, presentation of how this project is different from the rest of the conservation projects. So you have clearly described that. Other than the picture wall, where the focus was, preservation, there are other monuments in the fort, our fort we have restored. For instance, this was an abandoned structure, was used as an imperial kitchen in Mughal time. It was abandoned for last 30, 40 years. It was used as a political prisoner cell for various times. So, but through our intervention, this has been restored, and this is one of the major cultural attractions. A lot of events related to history of Lahore, cultural music events, major happening in this part. These are some visuals. Since it's almost 1 hour, so let me. I'll try to complete these slides in next 2 or 3 minutes. As a part of picture wall, we have also restored different monuments. This is the famous entrance gate of Lahore Fort, Shahbuj Gate. On the left, this was as found condition. On the right, this is how it is in post conservation state. Some other visuals. We're also working in the Sheesh Mahal area, where the glass. This is the only monument in Lahore Fort where glass has been used, and the level of deterioration we see in this project is immense. So we are doing a similar exercise we did for picture wall by engaging international expertise and doing a prototype. Then it will be peer reviewed by experts. Then we will then implement our project. This is another pavilion. This is how it used to look like before our restoration. This was Naulakha Pavilion, built by Emperor Shah Jahan. This is the process of restoration, and now this is how it looked like in the current state. It has been fully restored, and these are some other visuals. Other than these, we're also working on some other monuments currently in the process. This is the Sheesh Mahal area in the context of the Lahore Fort. These are some other areas we will be commencing work from this year, next year, landscaping. And of course, the major intervention would be interpretation center, like the one Aga Khan Trust for Culture India has done in India in Humayun Tomb interpretation center describing Lahore, history of Lahore, personalities associated with Lahore Fort and Lahore, and different eras, Sikh era, Mughal era, British era, post-independence era. So this interpretation center will describe everything through visuals, through models, through screens, through different mediums. 3D visualizations of abandoned structures we are proposing to be converted into a museum. I think this is end from us. If there are any questions, I'm sorry we took almost an hour to describe whatever we are doing. We are doing a lot more, but given the time limit, we have squeezed everything in 1 hour. And if there is any questions, me and my colleague Zena would love to answer those questions. Thank you very much. Any questions?
There's a question on the chat.
Okay, let me check. Okay, there is one question. How do you incorporate energy efficiency initiative in your conservation practice? Okay, so I mean, compared to a new structure or new buildings, our material, the way we use, the configuration of materials we use in these projects are all of indigenous material. In the terms of Lahore Fort, the maximum utilization of material is either brick, locally made brick, and lime. It's like this all material come from the local source, and these are well sufficient to address these, the global impact of energy efficiency. Of course, there is a limitation, I mean, for energy efficiency, we could go for electrical supply through these solar panels. But again, it's a different context, different setting where there is a limitation. This is a World Heritage. Lahore Fort is particularly a World Heritage site. Then you have, some restriction imposed by the local laws, and then the International World Heritage Convention, which is Pakistan is the signatory. So we rely on whatever original was done and try to kind of replicate that. But of course, when I say replication, original materials are the best source for a passive kind of energy. We have a thick walls, so I mean you need less energy to heat or cool down the structures. And I think the best example I could quote is the use of lime. And we use lime as a binding material for the construction. And the best part is lime extract carbon, so we are kind of carbon positive in terms of emission scale. But energy efficiency, we have to rely on local materials. We have no liberty to use some solutions available out there in the world because of the context, because of the structure of the building and the history attached to it, and the conventions which are linked, both national conventions or international conventions linked to these historical structures.
Question. So people who are connected online, you can unmute and ask the question or write them in the chat box.
Sorry, can't hear you.
Are there any more questions for everybody who is connected online? You can unmute.
So there was only one question, so we have tried to answer that. And there is no more questions. I don't see any more questions. in the chat box if there are questions. Questions from Zaina, particularly the use of how we are using science. This is something unique even for Indian context. Still, the preservation, the conservation methodology in India is different than what we are currently practicing in Pakistan. We still focus on preservation, and in Indian context, it is. My understanding is it is related to reconstruction. So, if you have a question like that, you can ask Zaina, or whatever question you want to ask for me, you are welcome. If not, then we say Khuda Hafiz.
But sorry about the technical issues. We look forward to extend participation with the LG.
Karachi.
Thank you so much for taking the time out. It was, I think, a wonderful talk, very crucial kind of insights to conservation, and we hope that it inspired the students to take it forward in their higher studies. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
If there are no questions, then we will leave the chat box and go back to our work.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a thank you, sir, for that very crucial talk. It was very critical insights to conservation, and I hope that the students can take it forward in their higher studies. And we hope to have an extended involvement of you with the school. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Zena. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
दिसल्याशिवाय त्यांना कळत नाही ना. स्टॉप